went to the Olympics for the 200 metres, but I have recently decided to move to the 400.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Hold on.
Not making that Olympics, has that been your biggest setback, do you think, that you faced?
I just couldn't accept that it was over. You know, I expected to make it. I knew I could make it. I just needed that one performance.
What is doing the Dubler? You mentioned that before at the start.
I think it sounds like you're doing a poop.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of our Mastering Podcast, a podcast that takes you behind the scenes, talking to the best of the best, from artists and athletes to entrepreneurs and scientists. My name is Sanka. I'm a retired athlete who made a comeback as a masters athlete in my late 40s to represent Australia in track and field. So today's episode is a bit close to my heart. Australia has seen a huge boom in track and field recently. Matt Denny, Nina Kennedy, Guat, and Tori Lewis has become household names. But in my opinion, this journey started at the 2000 Olympics. In this first episode, we are bringing together two of the most memorable track and field athletes from Tokyo. Their mindsets and their stories of resilience, the relentlessness and the pure determination will give us an insight into what it takes to become a master or an elite athlete. Unarguably, the queen of track and field at the Tokyo Olympics was Riley Day. Joining Riley is the master of multi-events, dual Olympian, decathlete, a man who is synonymous for his act of kindness and mateship, Cedric Dubler. Joining Cedric, Riley and me, our moderator, the host with the most, the host of M26 Fit podcast, Magnus Olsen.
All right, welcome Riley Day and Cedric Dubler. How are you guys?
Good. Happy to be here.
Very happy to be here.
Fantastic. Let's kick off. Can you just give us a little bit of a snapshot of what got you started in athletics?
I think I was like every Australian kid that did heaps of sports growing up, and I found that team sports isn't really my calling. So mum and dad took me to Little Athletics one day, and pretty much from there, the rest is history. I went through the schooling system, still did touch football and all the rest of it until I was about 15. And then I started specialising from then and started making my senior debut at 17. So I'm 24 now, so I've been a professional athlete for 7 years.
And how old were you when you first started Little Athletics?
So I started Little Athletics when I was 9. So before that, I was pretty much just doing everything else, netball, touch football, and yeah, from there, went to dance for one lesson and I hated it.
So why track and field though? Why did you said you did touch footy and dance, you hated it, but why track and field? How did that stick?
I don't know. I just sort of knew. I didn't really have the passion for anything else, and I was good at it. So that's normally kids, they find something they're good at and they're like, all right, let's keep going. So yeah, I made nationals off no training when I was 10 and medalled. And then from there, mum and dad were like, oh, she might be actually half good at this. And then from there, kept on going.
So you were able to make up your mind that, you know, you were good at a couple of events and you stuck to it?
Yep. So I was better at the sprints, but I enjoyed doing long jump and triple jump, and then the hurdles until they started getting a bit too high. So I kept to the...
Too high.
Too high.
That's unbelievable. That's the statement.
So I kept doing the sprints and the long jump, and then eventually specialised at 16 for just the sprints.
Yep.
So you could still make up your mind, unlike the guy sitting next to you.
I'm still deciding.
Yeah, well, actually, this is hot off the press that I haven't really told anyone this. I went to the Olympics for the 200 metres, but I have recently decided to move to the 400.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Hold on.
Should we come back to it or should we talk to Cedric?
Let's keep going.
Yeah, so this is very recent and not many people know. Only like my small team know this, so this is hot off the press. 200, it is probably my first love and I really enjoy it, but I just think my body just doesn't like running above 95% anymore. Yeah. And yeah, it's just really difficult for me to stay there. My body just breaks down. It has injuries. So I went to the drawing board with my coach and I made the decision myself to try and move to the fours. And
You weren't pressured. You
No.
made the decision on your own.
I made the
You
decision
do
on
realize,
my own. I know how
Some of
hard
us
it's going to
that-
be.
yeah.
Paul never saw it coming.
He never saw it coming. I was the
Wow,
person
so
that
Paul had no influence in that decision. You just went and did it on your own. Sorry, mate. It's taking a bit
This
longer.
is great.
But hold on.
yeah.
So some of us that try to attempt run that distance knows how hard I reckon it's the hardest event.
Yeah,
Right?
it's definitely one of the hardest events.
Not one of the. It is the hardest event. Once you get to that 50.
To a non-athlete, why is the 400 so difficult?
I think you can break it in sections. So the first 100, the second 100, and the third 100, and then when you come to the fourth one where you pray
But
to
why
the
is that more
gods.
difficult? But why is that more difficult?
Because you've
Well, I would say the only way to get really good at the 400 is to be willing to die multiple times a week, every week for years. So it takes a dedication that not many people have. You know, you can die for a few sessions and you're okay. Then a lot of people kind of step off the gas. To be good at the 400 requires that constant commitment to training, that willingness to throw up 2, 3, 4 times in a session and do that week after week after week after week. And that's why I'm so excited for Riley.
It's also technically one of the hardest events to master. You feel like, you know, my friends now, my wife tells me, you know, you're just running around one circle.
How hard
You
can
know,
it be?
If you're good enough, you should be finishing that well under 50 seconds.
So my boyfriend said the same thing, and he has never run a 400 or sprinted really in his life. So he's like, all right, I reckon I can run a faster 400 than you. I said, go on then. Show me what you've got. And he just went out there, sprinted a 4. And as soon as he finished, he's
And
like,
he didn't tear his hamstring.
no, he didn't. He looked at me dead in the eyes and was like, I don't envy you at all.
What time did he do?
He ran 66 seconds.
Okay.
So the
What do you
time,
run it in?
47.1. Yeah.
so the times that I'm aiming for will be 50 seconds.
Okay.
Good on you.
Well
We
done.
need a 50-second 400-meter runner in Australia because if you look at athletics, right, we're in a really good spot, right? We've got some really good sprinters. We've got some really good middle distance runners. We've got some good 200 runners with Gout coming into the scene. We've got male 400 runners that are good enough now to be in the world stage, even in a final in the Olympics and World Championships. Ellie Beer's there, but I think having, you know, a 50-second runner, that's what's Ellie and Boyer, they both hit around
they run,
51 seconds, right?
Yeah, mid 51s.
Yeah.
What's the Australian record?
It's Kathy Freeman.
It is
it's
still.
She's pretty quick.
That's a little
48?
bit,
Yeah.
It's a
Wow.
whole nother level.
Yeah.
So there's a long road from here till then. So we'll go along the journey. I'm excited for it. Nervous,
We'll back you
a little bit
there,
scared.
we want- yeah.
So far she's about 2 weeks in, so it's still very new. But
I
I've just
think-
been so excited for the session. So every single day at training, I just remind her, like,
I
are
wish
you
I didn't
you
change
excited
my
for
training.
the weekend? You excited for these sessions? Just so she doesn't forget, you know.
Yeah.
So what about you, Cedric? How did you get started in athletics?
Well, I think how most people kind of get started, primary school, the school carnival. I was okay at the long jump. I was okay at the high jump. I enjoyed the 800 and the 100. I kind of enjoyed a little bit of everything. And I actually was selected to go to the district championship. I thought I was kind of the world's greatest athlete at that point. It was so cool just looking on a map and being like, whoa, you know, I'm versing people from this entire region. And then I went to the regionals and then I went to the States and that just kind of blew my mind.
What age were you when you were doing that?
So that was year 5 of school. I don't
Around 10.
Yeah, okay.
around 10, yeah. And at the time I was playing soccer and I was doing basketball and tennis and, like, you know, a bunch of other sports. And I started lit athletics because I was really enjoying athletics, which went really well. And then I saw Steve Hooker compete at the Beijing Olympics in the pole vault, and he won Olympic gold. And I turned to Mum and I said, Mum, I want to do the pole vault. And initially she said absolutely no chance. And then after a little bit of convincing, she found me a coach.
So why did she say no chance?
Well, because, you know, she's seen pole vault go wrong. I think I must have like looked on YouTube or the internet and been like, this is what it's like, and I click on a fail video, and it's just people snapping poles and missing the mat and all sorts of stuff. So it probably wasn't the strongest pitch from my behalf, but a few years later, that coach, he was a paramedic. He was caught up in a lot of work, and so he wasn't able to continue coaching. So I found a new coach who was Eric Brown, multi-event coach, and I started working with him just to do the pole vault. But he was like, "Oh, come try a decathlon. Let's see how you go." I was 16 or 15 at the time, and I did okay. I couldn't throw to save my life. I still can't throw to save my life. But the other events went pretty well. And
just for our listeners, just describe what is the decathlon.
So the decathlon's 10 different track and field events over a 2-day competition. So it's always the same order. It's always 5 events first day, 5 events second day. Yep. We do the 100, the long jump, shot put, high jump, and 400 on day 1. And then we come out on day 2. We have to hurdle over the high hurdles. Then the discus. And then we do the pole vault. Riders, we're kind of exhausted and we just want to have a nap. Then the javelin, and then the 1500 to finish off. So I did that. It went okay. But then I kind of had a breakthrough in athletics the year after. And then the year after that, I was making World Juniors. And suddenly I was taking the decision to stop a lot of the other sports that I was doing to focus on the decathlon. And it went well. It paid off. I went to another World Juniors after that. Then I made the Olympics, and then kind of the rest is history. We were away.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked Riley. You said you were doing other sports as well. So what was the catalyst for you to say, I'm doing track and field, this is my sport?
I think I just got good.
Yeah, I think that's literally
it was like
that
reason.
and everything else.
Yeah, like I was playing football and basketball and volleyball, and
Yeah.
I did a little bit of swimming. I did taekwondo for a day, similar to your dance career. And I was enjoying everything, and I was okay at football, soccer, but then I made an Australian team in athletics, and I was like, well, this is going pretty well, and I'm enjoying it. I enjoy the challenge, so I kind of pursued that, and then suddenly it became the thing that I was doing.
Okay.
What age can you start? Because I imagine as a junior, as a 10-year-old, are you still doing pole vault as a 10-year-old, or you need to wait till you mature a little bit before you go and tackle such a...
I don't think you can do it before high school. Maybe you can train for it, but I don't think there's really any competitions. Yep. So I think it's mainly in high school that you can start. Yep. Some people don't start till well after that. And I was quite lucky that I had a gymnastics background as well. That was one of the things I did. So... that helped with a little bit of aerial awareness when it came to kind of picking up the pole vault.
Yeah. And what height are the poles? Like how high are you jumping as a high schooler?
Well, high schooler, I think I got up to 470. Now I'm at 520. And the poles that I jump on now are between 4.90 meters and 5 meters. That's the length of the poles. They're actually on the car outside. They're strapped on the roof. I don't know if you saw them. They're strapped on the roof because I went up to the sunny coast yesterday for a session. So I got my bags that I hope don't get stolen.
So what's the hardest event out of the 10? What would be the hardest one?
My worst...
Physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like my worst event, the one I enjoy the least is probably the shot put. Just because it's my weakest.
You're not exactly built like a shot putter.
I'm not built like a shot putter, not at all. But the hardest would probably be the 400. And, when I think about this season, I came off a few injuries last year. I tore my hamstring, then I broke my foot and had a bunch of time off training because of those 2 injuries. And when I think about the 400, because I don't have any base, I've lost all my fitness. Yeah. It's going to be probably 7 or 8 months before I can run anywhere near a decent 400. So whereas the other events you can pick up a lot quicker than that. Even the fitness work for the 1500 you can pick up a lot quicker, but the 400 is
still a sprint, right? Like you're a sprint.
And it's the lactic tolerance.
40 seconds.
The lactic right now is kicking in at 11 seconds. Whereas when I'm actually fit, I can kind of make it, maybe 30 seconds before it starts to kick my ass.
That's a good question. The problem is you go past that threshold, right? And there's not enough time. So it's like 400 in that pain sort of optimized position of you run out of all of your energy, you don't replenish anything. So the last 50 meters, you're practically swimming in pain. Yeah. Like it is. My coach used to tell me, like, you play the drums. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. The last 50 meters, you play the drums. You just move your arms.
Yeah.
It is playing the drum. Yeah.
And every now and then you watch someone, they're coming into the home straight and the sniper gets them and they just start moving on the spot. You know, they're not even moving towards the finish line. Yeah, it's entertaining. And it's such a fine line, because if you can't pick up time in a 400. So if you go out too slow, your race is gone. Yeah. If you go out too fast, you're not really making it to the finish line. And because in the decathlon, it's 1 of 10, it's important to maximize my points in that event, which is a fine line of putting it all on the line and playing it safe. And that's kind of one of the elements of the decathlon that I really like, is this puzzle that I constantly get to kind of piece together and then hopefully nail all 10 over the weekend.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to ask it anyway. But did you do the decathlon because you weren't good enough at one event? Or
I'm going to say no. I don't know if Riley will disagree.
Hurdle, right? Like, is that your favorite sport? Because
hurdles or pole vault is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Yeah. But so 2014 World Juniors, I was over in America, ended up coming second at the World Juniors. In that competition, I qualified for the Commonwealth Games in the long jump alone.
Oh, wow.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I feel like if and long jump is actually one of the events that I don't really train for. I might touch on it a few times a year and make sure my run-up's all good leading into a competition. But I feel like if I was to specialize in an event, I would probably go to the long jump. And I feel like with some training, I would probably get better than what I am now. And hopefully I would be at that competitive level, but probably not the same level as I am for the decathlon. So it's quite interesting to see how different athletes approach the decathlon. Some athletes are really solid across the board. They don't really have any strengths, but they don't have weaknesses either. And they are incredible decathletes. And others like me, we're strong in the jumps. We're kind of weak in the throws. We're decent in the run, and it kind of balances out. So yeah, I'm not average at everything. My long jump's okay.
Are you annoyed because it is the original sport, right? It is the Olympic sport, the decathlon, right? That's where it all started, right? But all the sprinters and the 400 runners, everyone gets all the accolades and the airtime. Decathletes, not so much. Is that frustrating? Considering that you're doing 10 events in the time to get one medal. You don't even get 10 medals.
I think it depends how well you tell your story during those big events. In Tokyo, Cedric told a really good story, and you have it at the bottom of your sheet is doing the Dubler, and that came from Tokyo and is still spoken about today. So I don't think it depends on what event you do. I think it's how well you tell your story. Because
that's a good point.
Yeah, it's all about marketing, really.
Yeah. And one thing I enjoy, like I don't really care for airtime on the TV.
Yeah.
I enjoy creating content on social media. And Decathlon, before I kind of came through, there were decathletes, but it had been a while since someone had made an Olympics. So Decathlon was kind of forgotten about a little bit in Australia. And I feel like over the last few years, it has been built up a lot more. I made the Olympics in Rio, then at Tokyo we had myself and Ash, and then in Paris we had Ash and Dan, and I was out injured. So we went from 1 to 2 to potentially 3, but another 2 athletes on the world stage, and we have the strongest depth we've ever had in the decathlon. But building up those events takes time.
You're breaking this down, right? Like you're the first to make Olympics in Rio after what?
16 years.
16 years.
Yeah.
Right. So we haven't had a decathlete representing Australia.
Yeah, we had some at the Commonwealth Games, but not at the Olympics. So it was cool to kind of break through, and then over the last few years try and build up the event where more and more people know what it is and know what it's about. But it's never going to be as popular as the 100 meters or the long jump or the 200 or 400 or those events that that are over and done with very quickly, but that's also not why I do the decathlon. You know, I do the decathlon to answer the personal question of how good can I be?
Yeah.
And that's still an answer that I'm trying to find out. And that's why I'm continuing.
You know what they say? No one actually really knows the full Adam Savage quote. Jack of all trades,
Master of none.
often not as good as, not better than one. I think that's what Adam Savage said.
Okay.
Often better than one.
Oh,
That last part, no one ever repeats.
yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
I didn't even know there was more to it.
There
Neither
is.
did I.
Yeah.
So,
What about mentally? Mental strength, mental fortitude. What does that look like for you guys in your individual sports?
I think you can.
I think it's a lot of trial and error. It's also, I struggled with it last year. Obviously, making an Olympics in 2020, you think that you're going to make everyone from then until you finish your career. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. And a lot of the times it's not from lack of effort. It's just circumstances that you can't really control. And what happened with me was injuries took place, and it was pretty much just trying to go up the creek without a paddle. And I did everything that I could to try and get to the Olympics, but unfortunately it didn't play out. And that is difficult because your mind takes you places that you don't really want to go, and you start comparing yourself to your past self, to your future self, and other competitors as well. And yeah.
I remember that post when you didn't make that the Paris Olympics. Right?
Yeah.
And that was very emotional, and there was a lot of support. Can you tell us, like, what does that pathway look like? Like, why is it so hard for so many, especially in Australia? It seems to be a really tough road to take to get there.
Well, what's the statistic? 0.0000.
Was it 5 or 6 zeros?
It was
Whatever it is, that's
5
another
zeros.
It's like 1 in every 500,000 people make it to an Olympics.
So it's not easy.
And then what was it to make
not
a
meant
second
to be
Olympics? Like a third of Olympians make a second one. So it's,
wow.
you know,
Okay.
it's practically nobody that can even make an Olympics, let alone two.
Does Australia have a better statistics than internationally? So for 1 in 500,000, is that Australian or
No,
is
that's
that
worldwide.
That's worldwide.
And then there's only one in what you're saying, 1.5 million that make a second Olympics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not supposed to be an easy task. It's hard with us because we're surrounded by so many Olympians every day that we sort of get flooded with everyone that achieves so much, that you need to sort of remove yourself and then take a look at what you've actually done and how hard it is to actually achieve. Because you say to everyone like, oh yeah, I made the Olympics, sort of nonchalantly, yeah, and they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. But I guess I was talking to my psychologist today because I find it really important to just work on performance mindset and working through everything that you need to do in everyday life. And overthinking is a really big thing, and
Yep.
your mind tries to make sense of things that don't go your way. So you make up different scenarios in your head of why you didn't make the Olympics. And it's, even if it's not true, oh, you just weren't good enough. Even though you were good enough, just different circumstances happened that stopped you from making it. So overthinking is a big thing, and it's a sort of removing those thoughts and recognizing that they're just thoughts is a big lesson that I haven't yet mastered. I only learnt about it today. So yeah, recognizing that they're just thoughts and it's not actually real is something that I'm now working on moving forward.
You might want to master it because you got a lot more time.
Yeah, I know. Especially with the lactics, like, oh, why did I do this to myself?
When you get to the 300s, yeah. So,
Is it something that when you're having that discussion with your psych, is there some exercises, like it's easier said than done, isn't it? Like people say, I'll just put that out of your mind, just put that behind you. But how do you actually go about doing that?
So I asked the same question because I was like, oh, it sounds easier than what you're making it out to be. It's pretty much just going through everyday life and recognizing your thoughts, even if it has nothing to do with athletics. So if you're driving in the car and you're like, oh yeah, I probably need to go and get this for dinner, and oh, I'm thinking about what I said to this person the other day. It's recognizing that, oh, this is the thought that I'm having. I'm thinking that I need to go to the shops and get apples, whatever. It's just practicing it before you actually need it. So it's the same as training for an event. You're training for this event and you're not actually racing the event every time. So
I think the first step is understanding why you're having certain thoughts. And I think that's acknowledging it. And I think that's what a sports psych is really good at helping you with. Not necessarily helping you be on the runway and feel fully comfortable, but when I'm at the end of the runway, we've practiced those, or we're aware that those thoughts of like, oh, the last time I did this, I ruptured my hamstring, could come in, and it's not practicing to block it out or anything. It's just going, okay, well, the thoughts are here. Let's put them aside and
it's almost like a meditation, because that's what you're trained to do in the meditation, is just let the thoughts come and let the thoughts go.
Yeah. Yeah. And even I remember speaking to my sports psych years ago about anger. There were some things that were really annoying me, and so we broke down the 3 reasons people get angry. And I can't remember what they were. This was maybe 4 years ago, but understanding that, these are the reasons that kind of trigger anger doesn't help me not get angry next time, but it helps me identify potentially why I'm angry. So that's kind of the things that a sports psych can help with.
Yeah. And what about the pressures that you have when you're training? And then there's obviously the pressure you've got leading up to a race. Just walk us through that process.
Well, the pressure of training is always there, especially in the decathlon. I'm training for 10 events in the week, and I don't have much time per event because, if I did a full session for every single event, it just wouldn't be possible. My body wouldn't be able to handle it. So I know that I have less throws, less jumps, less runs to nail the things I'm working on. I think the thing that has helped me in those training sessions is going in with a really strong purpose, and that comes down to the goal setting. So, we know what the overarching goal is, whether it's a performance at a specific competition, and then we've broken it down so that I know what my target is for each event, and then we've broken it down even further. So to get to my target in that event, what are the 3 things that I'm working on? So when I go into a training session, I know that I'm working on 1 of 3 things or 2 of 3 things, and trusting the process that leads to the event outcome, which leads to the overall outcome. Yep. So trusting the process is really important. And then pressure leading into competitions is very high. I think, again, especially in the decathlon, where we compete maybe 3 times a year, and you have, 10 events to try and nail. So there's a lot of things that need to come right on the day. And I think just being organized and having a plan for the competition and having the support around me at the competition, so that my coach knows exactly what the run sheet looks like, where he needs to be at what time, having the food plan ready to go, having the caffeine plan ready to go, having the massage therapist and the other coaches that need to assist ready to go, so everyone knows what the plan is, and then going out to execute, so that we eliminate as many of the unknowns as possible.
When do you feel the most pressure?
Before the 100.
Before the 100.
Well, maybe not the most pressure, maybe the most nerves. Because after that, you're kind of into the groove, you run well or you don't, doesn't really matter. Then you go into the long jump.
What about leading up to it? The day, the 2 days, the 2 weeks leading up to it. Is there any nerves or apprehension?
I think yes. I've gotten better over the years. Yeah. I remember when I was 17 in Barcelona at the World Junior Championships, for the last 5 nights leading into the competition, I had these vivid dreams about what was coming up. And I'd wake up in the morning having finished a decathlon in my dreams going, oh my God, I'm exhausted. But then I got to the start line, and, they say on your marks, and you go into the blocks, and you're there and you're going, whoa. Like I remember having this thought of, this is kind of what I've spent years leading up to, and then set, and then the gun goes and you run and you finish the race and you go, that actually wasn't too bad. So it's the anticipation of doing something that's always far worse than the actual doing of it, no matter how much you might dread it. And the more you recognize that, the more you can kind of prepare for it and either acknowledge those thoughts or go, that's part of the game. Let's get on with it.
I love what you said about trust the process, because Tennille said exactly the same thing to me, because I was wondering what's going through your mind. You're lining up, whether it be, say, the high jump, what is going through your mind? And you could be going, well, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and trying to capture all those thoughts. And she said, all I do is I just stand there and I just go, trust the process. I'm going to do exactly what I've just done in training, and just from a pressure release. So I thought that was fantastic. What about you, Riley? What do you do?
I think it's really important to train how you want to compete.
Yeah.
So I guess the pressure comes from within yourself to make sure you're exceeding expectations of what's set for this session.
Yep.
And overall, it perfectly reflects how you've been training is how you're going to compete. And you see it time and time again. It's the people that put themselves in a position to go above and beyond that make it. And it's just clear as day. So I go into every...
Sorry, I just had to.
Clear
as day.
Yeah, it's clear as day that you need to give everything in every session to achieve your goals.
Training with intention, right? Like
100%.
People ask me at 48, why do I run to and throwing up on the...
Are you 48?
Yeah.
Holy.
48.
Give me your skincare routine.
Did you see him going over the hurdles on his Instagram story? He's looking good. He's looking like a 28-year-old.
I felt 48 when I was going over the hurdles. But it's, it's training with intention. Doesn't matter 100%. How old you are.
Yeah.
And what it is. It's just like, why you're not training to go to the Olympics? That's what people ask me. I said, doesn't matter. If you're training to compete, train with intention.
Yeah.
Like, put it up. Don't leave anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important for everything in life as well. You do things with intention. You don't just kind of do things half-heartedly.
Yeah.
Unless that's your goal, is to just do things half-heartedly throughout your life, then go right ahead. But it's not the way I want to live.
Really well.
No, exactly.
You mentioned before just about the injuries and the setbacks. Has that been not making that Olympics? Has that been your biggest setback, do you think, that you faced?
I've faced not making the teams for the last 3 years due to injuries. And 2022, 2021, I had the best season that I'd ever had. Went into 2022, I started the season in my fastest ever season opener. And I was like, wow, let's go. Like, I'm ready to compete at the world's best and be even better this year. And then my injuries started, and it essentially didn't stop until... It hasn't stopped.
Have you had the same reoccurring injuries, or they all been different injuries?
They've all been different. So literally for the last few years, I've been trying to chase my tail to make the teams, and it's pretty much just turned into a snowball, and it hasn't worked out in my favour. And that obviously affects confidence. It affects self-esteem. It affects my fitness as well. Like it doesn't help at all. So this season that I don't know when I'm going to compete. I don't know what I'm going to compete in, but I'm not going to race until I'm ready. And I think that'll do me and my mental health a world of good, because, it's...
taking the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know how you keep going, right? Like, that's 3 years. Like, most people would have sort of said, I'm done, right? Like, you went to the Olympics. You're one of the...
Yeah.
You made the statistics, right? You've gone to the Olympics. You were the golden girl coming out of Tokyo. That was a big Olympics, right? For everyone, we needed some relief, and you guys delivered, right? I remember when you made it's the finals or semi-final, right? I'm like, oh my God, finally an Australian, like, at the Tokyo Olympics, just when we needed it, right? What you did was just lift a whole nation up, right? You've gone and you made the Olympics. You became the face of the sport overnight, and you brought that joy to the, like, at what point you say, I've done enough? Like, I don't want to keep doing this to myself. It's a lot of resilience. I'm getting at, it's like, where do you find this resilience, and how do you keep going? Now to say, no, I'm going to do the 400. You're either crazy. I want to know what keeps you going.
The hardest thing, I think, last year the few years leading up to Paris, I'd miss out on a team. I'd be like, okay, no worries. The hindsight of things, like grand scheme of things, no one cares about world champs.
Yeah.
Everyone cares about the Olympics, make the Olympic team. And then I miss out on the Olympic team and I'm like, oh shit, what now? And I don't really know yet. But resilience is definitely a big thing that I have. It's difficult at times. I'm like, why do I do this? But the one thing that never goes away is my desire to be the best in the world, and whether that's now to be a 400-meter runner, we'll see. But when Paul chatted to me about things need to change, nothing changes without anything changing in terms of injuries. I didn't want to give up on the dream of being the best in the world just yet. And yeah, I don't care if that's in the 200.
What was that conversation like?
It was difficult to hear, but Paul is an amazing human, and he has put me before his own needs for a long time. And for him to have that conversation with me shows a lot about him as a person and his character. And I trust him fully to take me to being the best in the world. And I asked him straight up, I was like, do you think I have the capacity and the ability to be the best in the world for the 400? And he's like, bloody oath, like, let's do it. Like, give it a crack. But then he's like, you've just given me your soul though. Like, this is going to be hard. But yeah, my desire to be the best in the world is stronger than the adversities that I've faced.
How much does your coach play in the whole picture? Like, you've been with Paul, right? Like, you stuck with him through the whole thing. Like, how much does it sort of play into who you are? Like, you made it to the Olympics. Now you've stuck it out. You're now you're going to the 400, the hardest event on the planet.
After the decathlon.
Sure. I think it is just having trust, and I've been with him since 2018, and I've grown up with him from my junior years to my seniors, and we've been successful. And I think I've completely lost my train of thought.
How important the coach is.
How important the coach is. Just him having the faith in my ability as well, and having trust in him to take me to where I want to go. And we've had the conversations. If there's any point that I don't think that's him, then he's completely okay with that. But moving forward, I have faith in him that he will take me to where I want to go.
Yeah, nice.
I think going back to your point before about like when is enough.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the traits that make elite athletes so good, and also at our detriment is, we will achieve something incredible. For me, my lifetime goal was making Olympics, and then I did it at 21, and I was like, well, that's not enough.
3 times. 3 times.
2. Missed out last year. Yeah.
We got to talk
Too
about
soon.
that.
Yeah. But then I achieved a lifelong dream at 21, and instead of going, okay, well, like, let me do something else, I was like, well,
what's next?
There's more there. There's more there. Like maybe a top 8 in the world, maybe even beyond that. Let me
long jumper,
or become a long jumper. Yeah. But it's that constant, no matter how well we do, we know there's more there. And I think in Riley's case, she knows that there is more there to unlock, and that's probably what's kept her going as well, is not having yet reached that ceiling that she knows she's capable of.
I think we're tapping into something that it's very rare and different, right? This is what separates an elite athlete from a
correct
average person. It's
But unfortunately, a lot of the time athletes don't get to finish on their own terms, and the ones that do are very, very lucky. Yeah. And the fall down from grace, if you don't get to finish on your own terms, is very difficult. And that's why I think it is so important to work with a psychologist even during your career to help you change and adapt to your new lifestyle, because you're up here and you're going to come crashing down. And everyone talks about the post-Olympic depression, like it's a real thing.
Yep.
And it happens to most of us. And working through that even at the end of your career is very important. And some people don't know how, and it ends badly.
What was it like not to make that last Olympics?
It was wild because I expected to make it.
Yeah.
And
We all expect to make it.
we all expect to make it. You know, I started off the season strong. I started at the state championships in December the year before, so December 2023. I posted the 16th best score in the world for that whole year. It was a really low level competition, so it didn't get me a lot of bonus points that would help me qualify. But all I had to do in 2024 was go to a competition, do a solid score, place reasonably well, and I would be in. And I went to the national championships. I had a bit of a horrible lead up to the national championships. Like I wasn't sleeping well. My ceiling was actually leaking, so I had water damage in my room. I had mold in my room. It was a whole thing, and I just had a really horrible lead up to the national championships. And we started the competition, and the first two events just did not go well. And then the third event, it was okay. And then the fourth event, I was high jumping into the sun, couldn't even see where the bar was. Had a pretty average result, and we were like, well, to be honest, there's no point finishing. This isn't going to help us qualify for the Olympics. So then we're like, okay, let's go to the Oceania Championships. It's a bigger competition. I'll score well there. I'll place well there, and that'll secure my spot. So, and then we had a really good lead up to the Oceania Championships. And then I ran the 100 into a massive headwind, ran pretty strongly compared to the other athletes. And then we had the long jump, the winds turned around. Suddenly we had this massive tailwind behind us. And I was like, all right, let's go pick up some points. And then my legs just felt off. Like, especially my left hammy just felt a little bit weird. And I was trying to just kind of force through it. And on the third jump, it just went. And that's where in Australia, it was reported that I ruptured my hamstring. I actually went overseas to try and get some more answers, and they don't think it was fully ruptured. But there was definitely a solid tear in there. And suddenly in that moment, you go from having it all kind of figured out, the plan of, you know, I just have to go into this competition and do this one thing and you know, tick the box, to it's kind of fallen apart in front of your eyes. And then there was still a month left to qualify. And I'm thinking, well, I've got a torn hamstring, but before the Tokyo Olympics, I tore my hamstring 18 days before the competition. It was a grade 2 tear with tendon involvement, and we were able to rehab it in time to go to the Olympics and perform there. So I was thinking the same thing could be possible, and that's why I started to you know, I flew over to Germany to see a doctor to try and get some answers.
That German doctor was? He's a magician.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
And then I entered in another competition over in Germany, having done practically no training, and the hamstring wasn't ready to go. I also had flown over my coach from Australia because I hadn't packed any shoes. I thought the whole thing was over. And the German doctor was like, oh, well, you can give it a go if you want to, you know. So
like, yes, I will.
Yes, I will.
You've given me a half-ass yes, I will.
So
it's good enough.
And it was one of those things that I just couldn't
yes.
I just couldn't accept that it was over. You know, I expected to make it. I knew I could make it. I just needed that one performance. It was just within my grasp, and all I had to do was close my fingers around it. And I wasn't ready to go in Germany. And so I said to my coach, can we fly to the UK? There is one more comp. It's the final weekend of the qualifying period. Let's go there and let's see if the hamstring's any better next weekend. And we went there. It was freezing. It was horrible conditions. I warmed up the best I could. I ran the 100. I felt a little pop in my hamstring, and I was like, well, it's over. And then at that point, it was like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like everything that you've worked for, everything you've expected. Like I had already put myself into the mentality of like, this is what I want to do at the Olympics, because I just expected the process to make it. I was already in a good position. I just had to finish a competition, and it kind of just slipped out of my grasp.
And I guess I'm going to come back to what I said earlier about overthinking your past, your future. So you're overthinking your future and not focusing on the here and now. And I guess that's sort of what I was working on this morning, is not to overthink the past, not to overthink the future, just concentrate on what you're doing in this right now.
In that moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you've taken yourself up to these yes, I'm already there, and then you're not there. And I feel like it's a bigger fall than a potential, I'm doing this right now, and that's all I'm focusing on.
How do you balance it? How do you balance, like most people, it's a work-life balance, but you guys are full-time athletes, and how do you balance that level of training to avoid burnout and then still maintain relationships, family, friends?
And how do you afford this, right? Like we're not in the US. You don't have the pro athletic scholarships and everything else, all the money and the endorsements that you get. It's a struggle, right? Like I read somewhere that most of the Australian Olympic athletes live under the poverty line. And,
Well, I placed top 8 at the World Championships in 2022. I got bumped up to a very high level of funding in athletics. It was $30,000 a year. But as soon as I didn't make the Olympics last year, I got dropped to 0. So, suddenly...
It's a great question. I've been kicked out altogether.
She doesn't even get a free gym access or medical, whereas I do. I'm still lucky in that regard. But it's a very...
Is it the Queensland Institute of Sport or the Australian Institute of Sport? Like who's the governing body on that?
Well, Australian Athletics is the governing body that makes those decisions.
Right.
And then they put together a list and send it to the Australian Sports Commission, and they say yes or no. We're gonna fund them or we're not.
Is there a qualifying criteria in relation to funding?
There is, but
It's up to their discretion.
Right.
Everything in our sport, it has this discretionary element to it. And even when you read the selection policy, you can get not select. You can be not selected for a team if you're not in good standing with Australian Athletics. So even here, I have to be very careful about what I say, because if they're not happy with, how I present or what I say, that can affect my team selection.
Yep. So do you work?
Oh, hold on. What does this have to do with sports? I don't get it. Hold on. Like seriously.
You'd think it's black and white, especially in a sport where
sport.
exactly.
It doesn't make sense to me in business, so it shouldn't make any sense in sports, right?
It's interesting, isn't it?
Does it make any sense to you?
No.
Nah. Like
most of us have to work to be able to fund how we live. Some of us are very fortunate to be able to do social media, because that's the only way you'll make money is through social media.
Influencer.
Yeah, influencer. But some of us opt to work.
Sponsorships.
Yeah, that's all comes through social media.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. That's our only leverage power is social media and following.
And even in Australia, there are not many athletes that are sponsored to be an athlete. A lot of all our sponsorship arrangements are tied to social media, are tied to because that's
so it's not
how we
based on
provide
your
commercial value.
So you're saying like your sponsorships are not based on your performance or athletic.
Sometimes they are, and obviously the better you perform, that can give you some sort of commercial value. But for most people, it comes from the reach that we have on social media.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Right. So back to how do you balance your life?
Well, we've probably done a really poor job at that for the last few years, because I've been like full dedicated focus to the decathlon, to this pursuit, and it has paid dividends. I've made every single team since my first in 2016 all the way through to last year, which was the first team that I'd missed out on. So I've had a really good career up to that point. But it's come at the detriment of a social life, of a work life. I haven't been to university. I haven't done a degree. I have no work experience outside of working with brands and delivering on things on that front. So that's something that I'm looking to change this year and actually figure out the balance a little bit better. And I know you're working on that front as well.
Yeah, I have a degree. So I studied when I was younger and I finished 2 years ago. I just found that being a full-time athlete isn't really for me anymore. I find that if I have a job, I have something else to focus my mind on. And the big issues in athletics then become smaller if I have something else to...
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that.
Yeah.
Having a distraction, does that help you?
100%. But you have to plan it in a way that your training doesn't get affected.
Yeah.
But the mental side of things, I think it 100% helps. So
What sort of a degree have you got?
I've got a degree in marketing. Degree in Bachelor of Business, majoring in marketing and sports management.
And what sort of job are you looking at?
Honestly, I'm open to anything.
Anyone that will pay her a lot
No.
to do little.
No, I'm looking for something that I'm able to do, I don't know, part-time to 0.8 maybe of the week. There's a lot of prerequisites, but I'm like, it's hard because that's the way that I'll be able to balance it is I could just go and get a job at Woolies down the road, but then I'll have to be there on site, whereas I want to be able to do it wherever I am in the world, you know what I mean?
Flexibility.
Yeah. Just because that's when you're overseas, that's when you have the most time and the most time to think. And I think having a job when you're over there is...
So since you finished your degree, have you used your degree? Have you done any? You haven't done a job.
No, only other than marketing myself.
Yeah.
I haven't got any corporate experience per se.
Okay.
I'm just curious. So when you got a marketing degree and you finished that, you said a couple of years ago, how has marketing changed in the last 2 years from what you studied?
Oh, the degree is so dated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so dated.
There's been so much evolution in technology, hasn't it?
I did a total of 24 courses that you need to do to complete a degree. One of them is on social media, and that's one of the biggest forms of marketing there is these days.
Yeah.
So, and even then, it's like, this is not real world marketing.
There are better working disruption models out there, but let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Okay, let's chat mindset. So you got visualization. What are some of the tools that you use to maintain the right mindset you need to be an elite athlete?
I think it's having little goals to work towards and also having a big goal. So you can have a big goal, but that might be, so the Olympics 4 years down the track. That's a long way to go from this point to this point. So you having little goals in between to work towards to get to your end goal.
Those kind of stepping stones along the way.
Yeah, I think is easier to keep a positive mindset because you're working towards something, and once you've hit it, you're like, awesome, let's upgrade it and go to phase 2. So I think for me that really helps, just to have smaller goals to work towards that objectively is going to get you to your bigger goal.
Yeah. I've heard that referred to as it's more of a an action goal versus a results goal, because that result, for example, that's something that's difficult to measure. But if you've just got the action goal might be, I need to train 2 hours a day. You can control that. And the effort that you put in through that training, for example, whether it be heart rate based, they're all the ones that you can control. And you go, if I do that for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 5 weeks, then I'm going to be able to do this in this particular time based on those metrics. And you're not getting as hung up about that because you can't control that in your day-to-day training. What you can control are those smaller. Is that something that plays a part in?
Yeah, and I also, even for the big goals for me, it's still a goal that is within my grasp. So for me, I set the big goals as a point score rather than a placing, because I can't control what anyone else does.
Yes.
But I can control how I perform.
Yeah.
And then along the way, it's all, to score 8,500 points, I need to run a 10.85 in the 100.
Yeah. Maybe let's just stop you there for a sec. Can you just explain that to the listeners, how the point scoring works throughout those events?
So the better I perform, the more points I get. So the quicker I run the 100, the more points I get. Yeah. The further I jump in long jump, the further I throw the shot put or the discus or the javelin.
If you run that time, you get these points.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Which then makes it equal across the board. Yes. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. 2 meters in high jump is,
this many points.
I'm going to say 870 points. And every 3 centimeters beyond that is 30 extra points or 32 extra points. Okay. So you always know kind of what those goals are.
Yep.
And I know, 8,500 points, I could break it down to, what that is per event, those performances. Yep. And then I know in training what I need to do to hit those metrics. So it's all things that I can do that are
within your control.
Within my control, exactly.
Yep. And what about you, Riley? Like, how are you measuring and looking at those little smaller goals now that you've jumped into the 400?
I don't really know yet because I'm only.
She doesn't know what she's into.
Yeah, because
have you even done a week of training for the 400?
I've done one.
How did that go?
I have a starting point. It's it's a big jump from a 200 to a
Can we
4.
talk about your first session?
Yeah,
Can I tell everyone about your first session?
Go for it.
Okay, well, I'll preface this by saying we have no idea what Riley's pace is for the 400. But we kind of, well, not me. Paul made up this figure, right? She was running 6 200s, made up this target figure and said, stick to that pace.
He said in capital letters, do not go faster.
Do not go faster. And if you drop a second and a half slower than that target pace, the session's done.
Yeah.
I went out and I joined her to pace her to kind of support her along. And the first rep was 2 seconds slower than the target pace. So the session should have been done. And
Mind you, we had like a 3 meter head.
It was the conditions were horrible, and the coach was away that day. He was holidaying in Tasmania, which would have been lovely.
I kept running. I did 4 in total.
Did the second one, that was within the second and a half, and the third one was
back into the headwind.
back into the headwind. It was too
What was
slow
the time,
again.
if you don't mind me asking.
With the wind, it was like 27 mid, I think.
Okay.
That was my target time was 26.
Okay.
And for 6.2s, 26 seconds with 3 minutes break. That's
Yeah, quite nice.
So just
I was like-
explain to me, I understand how you can get a headwind into 100, but when you're running around in a full circle, how can you have a headwind?
so I was only running 200s.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so just half a lap.
Yep.
In a 400, you're
Yep.
always guaranteed a headwind.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
And at Cusack, you can get a headwind the whole way because it is a horribly built stadium.
So you get a swirling breeze and the headwind just follows you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Much.
That's where we're hoping the Olympics are going to be. No one is. Let's not even go to that subject.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to have the Olympics?
Well, we're going to have the Olympics, but hopefully not at Cusack.
The rate it's going, no one believes that it's going to happen.
What, the Olympics?
Well, we need a stadium.
Oh, true. Look, I'd like Vic Park to go ahead.
Me too.
I think that would be really cool. I think Cusack is.
Brisbane needs.
This is the thing about Cusack is, personally, I would love a brand new stadium at Cusack.
Yeah.
But knocking down temporary grandstand to put up temporary grandstand is just a horrible idea. It's not good enough for the Olympics. I also think Brisbane can use a brand new stadium.
80,000
And if
seat.
and if they built that at Cusack, it also wouldn't make sense because why would you have a track in there 365 days a year when there's 6 of us using it?
Yeah.
So it can't be at Cusack. It needs to be somewhere else. Otherwise, if they have it at Cusack, there's no value in leaving the track in there. That you're better off ripping it up and having it as a footy field or something.
There's no
With the,
transport
Commonwealth
network
Games,
out there either.
No, there's not. No, there's a bus line, but
There is, but yeah.
yeah.
It hasn't got the train.
Why is this so hard? If it makes sense to all of us here.
Someone just
Because-
needs to come in and just make the decision.
Lack of
Not
leadership.
everyone's going to be happy,
Yeah.
pretty much.
But it seems like I haven't heard of anyone who's against the idea of Vic Park, right?
But maybe you speak to people in the sporting world that know what the Olympics is about. I think if you look and speak to people more broadly, they're going, that's a lot of money. We don't see the value in that. And I think people will see that value when we get closer to the Olympics and the excitement builds.
They're screaming
But when
for
you're
Taylor Swift.
7 years out or whatever we are, it's really
But
hard
even in a
to
business
see that
case,
value.
It makes sense, right? Like it.
But it's a lack of vision because every single big infrastructure project looks like it's expensive. It's like the Gateway Bridge, and then you finally build it, and then everybody
like, oh,
goes,
this
"Well, we
is
should
great."
have built that 5 years ago."
Yeah.
So
That's
no
what I'm
one
saying.
complains
And
about
I think that's why we just need to stop asking questions. We need how far away from the 100-day review are we from being done? I think it's almost done. There might be another 10 days or something left, but we just need people to start making decisions and going, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, and just go and execute. But I think before that it was used as a political tool, and it was kind of ping-ponged back and forth, and they were trying to keep everyone happy. And the simple fact is you're not going to, and you need to just go and make a decision, and then people will see the value in it, as we get closer. Or, as Riley said, when they go to the Taylor Swift concert and
You don't have to fly to Sydney for it or Melbourne.
Exactly.
Or she doesn't get here at all now, right? She didn't
No.
come here.
No, 'cause she didn't. Why would she come to Brisbane when she can sell out MCG and have 100,000 people and come to Suncorp and sell out 50,000?
There's enough economic value examples here, right? Like we don't have enough tracks to start with. In Queensland, let alone Australia, we don't have enough tracks. So I think the answer is there. But I want to switch to something positive, right? Before we run out of time. What is doing the Dubler? You mentioned that before at the start.
Great question.
I think it sounds like you're doing a poop.
Yeah.
It does. She put that in my mind years ago, and now whenever someone says it,
Now you're going to talk through it with that in your mind. That's going to be really interesting.
yeah. Doing a doubler was coined at the Tokyo Olympics when, in the last event of the decathlon, I paced my teammate, Ash Maloney, in the 1500.
Yeah.
And my job going into that race was just to pace him at a certain pace and keep track of where the two athletes that were 4th and 5th were in the race, because if they got too far away or too far ahead of us, Ash would have lost his bronze medal. And I paced him, and it was with exhausted, and the pace just kind of kept slipping and slipping, and I needed him to kind of step up and go, and there was one lap to go. Garrett Scantling from the US was, I think he was 10 seconds in front of us, which was right on that mark of Ash losing his bronze medal. And I realized if leading from the front wasn't going to work for Ash, I needed to drop back behind him and kind of push him across the line. And so that's what I did with 400 meters to go. And I just started screaming in his ear. I was just caught up in the moment.
I can remember it like it was yesterday.
I was so pumped up on adrenaline, and I started screaming. I was just trying to push him and encourage him, and I did that for about 150 meters before he kind of switched back on and realized where he was, and then he kind of kicked home to claim that bronze medal for himself. And then it turned out afterwards that there was I forgot all about TV because we were in an empty stadium. You forget that there's cameras and stuff around.
It was the COVID Olympics, right?
The COVID Olympics. But it turns out that on that first bend, there was a Channel 7 camera that caught me screaming at Ash, and it went viral in Australia. And so doing a doubler is about supporting a mate when they need support. It's not about doing a poop.
It did get you on a chocolate wrapper, right?
Yeah, Cadbury came to the table and they said, "Yeah, we want to put you on a chocolate bar," which was
How
cool.
important is it to have the right sponsors, right? Have them at the right time. Like, perfect example is that trip to Germany, right? Where Koala came to your rescue. Just tell us a bit about that story and how important is it? And I would love to hear from you as well, right?
Well, I think sponsors are hard to come by, and having really good sponsors make all the difference. I partnered with, we both did. We partnered with Koala last year on a social campaign. And
because you wanted a nice mattress, or
wanted a nice mattress. They were
an Olympic campaign with a few.
With a few athletes.
Give them a plug. Who are they and what do they do?
Koala, they do
Koala mattress.
Yeah, they do mattresses, they do beds, they do some furniture as well. Yep. They do outdoor settings now.
Oh, no. I didn't know that.
But they wanted to help us improve our sleep, and so they came to the table. And funnily enough, after I got my Koala mattress, I actually started sleeping better. So I was able to kind of get my training and my preparations back on track. And so I had this kind of connection with Koala from that campaign. And then after I tore my hamstring in Fiji, I flew back to Australia. I got my scan. I realized that there was a ruptured hamstring. I had a ruptured hamstring. And we were kind of going back and forth with what we do. Do we continue? Do we not? Do we throw in the towel? And I wasn't getting enough answers in Australia, so I realized I wanted to go over to Germany to see a doctor, to see a specialist, to get some solid answers. But the issue is I could only fly economy. And so I put out a call on Instagram to say, does anyone know anyone at Qantas that could upgrade my flight from economy to business? And there were a few, it's like my brothers, sisters, uncles, goldfish, loads the luggage or something. But we couldn't quite get to the right person. And a few days later, Koala messaged me and they said, how are you going with it all? Is it coming through? And I said, it doesn't look like it. And I've just found out that I can't do a points upgrade either because business is fully booked. So it looks like I'm going to be sitting in economy. And so they called and they said, book whatever you need and we'll pay for it. And I said, okay, well, I'll book business to go there. I'll book economy back. And they said, no, go business back as well.
Because you're not exactly a short guy, are you?
I'm not a short guy. And this was the thing is if I've got a ruptured hamstring, I can't be sitting in economy with my hips, with my hamstring on stretch for 24 hours. I needed to be lying flat, especially when I'm going to seek answers to find information. So Koala paid $17,000 for this return flight ticket on a whim. They didn't ask for anything, and they just said, go get the answers you need. We've got your back, and that was really, really, really special.
Apparently they got their return of investment from sales from Cedric as well, so they got their money back and more.
And that's the thing, right? Like, this is the thing. When you invest in the right people, and sports people are exactly from your story, like, you guys are resilient. You like a dog with a bone. You don't give up, right? Like, and also you got so much loyalty. And I've seen many times everywhere you go, you plug the brand, right? If they do the right thing. And I think more Australian businesses need to get behind our athletes. And that's something that doesn't happen enough. There's always the expectation of eyeballs, right? We don't have the eyeballs that the American athletes have or the European athletes.
You mentioned the Americans twice. Are they the country that does the best as far as looking after the athletes, or which country do you think?
It's a home of capitalism. They'll do anything to...
But what about other countries? Like, I know Germany's come up a couple of times in conversation, so they've got some elite people over there, elite coaches, and...
They all get paid full-time to be an athlete.
Those other nations.
Yeah.
And it all goes
if you're
back
Olympic
to...
level.
Yeah, it does go back to the eyeballs, right? So they have programs with much bigger deals in streaming deals. Yeah. So the programs there are...
Yeah, okay.
But
more eyes.
But it also comes down to how the sport is run. I feel like in Australia we could turn around it so easily if we just invested in the right sort of stuff. If you've watched an athletics broadcast, it is boring. I watched a competition the other day, and they focus on a few events. They focus on the races. They don't play replays. They don't go to the field events. It is a horribly broadcast sport.
Unemotional.
Yeah.
And you would watch, like, most people would just tune in to watch Goud run. I would just do it to watch Reese run.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones
But
where...
You watch someone you know.
Correct. Whereas when it comes to even the NCAA championships, I would watch the whole thing. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
Right? All of these backstories that's been built.
And this is what's missing. And I think this is what could elevate any sport. You look at F1, right? How they've turned the storytelling around, how they brought in Netflix to create a drama series. In Australia, we do nothing. We do nothing to promote the stories of the athletes. We do nothing to raise their profiles. It comes down to the individuals to do it themselves. But it needs to be run from the sport.
How do we do it? Where do we need to make the changes? Where does the change?
Well, I can't say that without getting kicked off the next team I want to get on. It comes from not paying their own salaries and actually investing in a content team, in people that actually know how to do broadcast better. It comes it comes from storytelling. It doesn't like.
But is that the responsibility of Athletics Australia?
Absolutely.
What's it called now? I've forgotten.
Australian Athletics.
Athletics.
A big rebrand to switch it around.
There's a huge rebrand, right? So does that come from that or from the broadcasting companies? Like where does
No, it comes from Australian Athletics, because if they would make so much more if they could elevate their athletes. And if they elevate the athletes as well, the athletes make more money and they perform better. But if they don't want to invest in the athletes, in the profiles, then the athletes have to go and get jobs to fund their pursuit. And the whole performances of the Australian team are sacrificed.
There's no better time to do it than now, right? Like we got Tory, we got Goud.
We've got so much talent.
We've got some of the best talent. We've got the fastest 60 meter in the world right now.
Yeah.
Lucky Kennedy.
We've got so much talent, and we just haven't pushed out those stories.
Yeah, and we're going to have the fastest 400 female coming up pretty soon, and it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me.
This is public knowledge, so I'm not dissing anything.
She's a lot more careful than I am when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Last year from AA was 250,000 went to athletes and coaches, and I think. The other
they made about 13 million or something, or 16 million?
18 million going to
salaries.
Wow.
Maternity.
That puts it into perspective.
Yep. It's actually
something like that.
I'm not going to mention names either, but there's a lot of charity
big
organisations that are exactly the same. So 82 cents of every dollar goes towards the staffing of those organisations, and 18 cents actually gets on the ground to help when you donate. And you get an understanding of that. And like I said, I'm not going to mention any companies, but it's quite tragic when you look at it from that perspective. People are donating,
People don't
thinking
know.
this is going to that, but it's actually going to running the organisation. It's not in getting on to the ground.
I guess this is a good call to action to the ASF, the Australian Sports Foundation.
Yeah.
Through the ASF, if there is an athlete that anyone watching this wants to support, the athlete can set up a page on the ASF. It is fully tax deductible for the donor, and it's paid to the athlete as a grant, so it's non-taxable for that athlete as well. The ASF takes 5%. The athlete keeps 95%.
Oh, wow.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. So if there is anyone watching and they want to support an athlete that they, if they've been a fan of their journey or they want to support them, that's the best avenue to do it.
And if they don't have one, it takes 5 minutes to set up, and if just message them and say, can you set this up for me because I want to give you something.
Who's the author of that organisation?
I'm not sure.
It's
But they're based in Milton, in Brisbane.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're doing great jobs, and not just for individuals, for sporting clubs as well.
Yeah.
So it's
So is that just athletic?
no, that's all
That's
sports.
sports.
All
That's
All
every
sports.
sport.
Yeah.
And it could be from a 9-year-old to
Yeah.
a master's athlete.
Yeah, you don't
Like,
have to be at a
there's
certain
no-
level. Anyone can set up a page. There's obviously restrictions. You can't get, a tax deduction donation, whatever, from your brother or your family, or those sort of things. And
So no money laundering.
yeah, it's not to launder, but when we talk about charities and it not actually reaching the cause,
Yeah.
the ASF is the perfect avenue for this specific purpose.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Well, Riley, before we finish up, how's your journey been like? Have you had any sponsors like Cedric, like Koala? Have you had the support? We also, Woolworths, right? You were working for Woolworths. You were the girl from Port Desert working for Woolworths I don't know what you were doing then, but we saw you running along the
aisle.
bearing- yeah. Are they still behind you?
They are. I was on a 3-year contract with them until Paris, and now I'm on a 1-year contract. They have been very supportive with me in the lead up to Paris. It's dropped since then, but any support is appreciated from any sort of company. I've got loyal sponsors at True Protein and No Timid Souls, which are both Australian companies. And
Is that the one who keeps smelling the T-shirt?
yeah, the one that doesn't stink. Yes.
Can I ask? Does that work?
I
Genuinely?
promise. I swear on my dog's life, it did not stink after 5 days.
You do have a dog, right?
She doesn't
do
have
have
a
a dog.
dog.
Yeah.
You do not have a dog. Your boyfriend has a dog.
She's my dog too. She's so cute. She's gone
So
for
you
fever.
claim your boyfriend's dog to. Well done. So it does work. So you could run, but hold on. You've been running 100 meters, right? So
How's it going to smell after 400?
400. Yeah,
That's
I
the
know.
question.
I need to do a retest.
no timid. What's it called?
No Timid Souls.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've been really loyal to me, and they have been understanding of my change of direction as well. And yeah, I look forward to keeping that partnership going and building the relationship with them. So yeah, as you said before, the athletes are loyal to people that are loyal back. So
Yeah. And you said True Protein.
yeah,
Okay. Who's that? What do they do?
a protein company.
Obviously.
Supplement.
Should have been very obvious.
Supplement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
is
they're based in Sydney. Cedric's sponsored by them as well. They're based in Sydney, and they do everything out of their office.
Seems like there's a community of companies that support Aussie athletes, right? Like you said, Koala supported a lot of Olympic athletes. True Protein sounds like everyone sort of they're getting behind these athletes. There seems like a few of them. We need more. We need
Yeah,
more.
we do need more. Yeah. And it's so good to have these companies involved.
Great opportunity leading up to 2032.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think
The
that's
commercial value will just continue going up and up and up for Australian athletes. So we just need more companies involved and ready to explore. It's really easy for these companies to go direct to influencers. And I think that's kind of what we're competing against as well.
Which is it's their full-time job.
Which is
so
their
that's all they
their
do.
full-time job. That's exactly. But I think it's so much more authentic if you're getting behind Australian athletes.
I couldn't agree more. Because I
People
think
with
as an
actual-
athlete, you've actually got a purpose, whereas the influencer, their purpose is just the influencer. They don't actually have a cause.
And mate, if you're taking protein drinks and using that stuff and you're putting it to the test, that's the real test, right?
Yeah, that's why I hate the term influencer.
Yeah.
You know, when people ask what I do, I don't like using the term influencer. I create content.
Yeah.
I share with people my journey,
You're an artist.
and part of my journey is using these products, is sleeping on a koala mattress, is using the True Protein products. It's all authentic, natural partnerships. I don't like the term influencer.
Yeah.
Sounds disingenuous. Yeah.
But it's inspirational. I did a little bit of sponsorship with Tania when I first met her, and it was just understanding what you guys do on a daily basis, where you give up everything. You give up family, you give up friends, you give up any potential of careers to go and chase a dream. And I'm getting goosebumps. It's just, I have the most admiration for that, because I think that's something that's missing from society. And I love just dream chasing, that you've got something, and usually it starts with a vision, but being able just to follow that and follow it, and the price that you guys pay compared to some of the other athletes around the world that are paid and can be rewarded accordingly, whereas you guys are just, maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't, and
But it's
having a
giving
crack.
100%. And it seems like you got a really good community now, right?
Yeah,
Great community.
it takes
And
time, but
Were you part of her wedding?
Yeah.
When she got married, like it's a really nice little community. It seems like every time I see you guys at a meet, it seems like everyone's really good friends.
yeah, well, you're all in the journey together. Like
Yeah.
your enemies per se for the 3
Race.
minutes that you're lined up against each other, and then
Hopefully not that
Oh
long.
no, I was going to say.
I'm talking about from the start line, from the on your mark, set.
Yeah.
But Tania was saying, because the decathletes are multi-event athletes, that's even a closer community, isn't it, than
Yeah.
compared to some of the other one?
Well, I think because we are in it together for so long,
Yeah.
we're together for 2 days, and we also recognize that other people have strengths and weaknesses, and we'll beat them in that event, they'll beat us in this event. We get nothing out of, button heads against each other. So a story that not a lot of people know, and I know we've gone over time, but before the 1500 in Tokyo, I was planning on pacing Ash, and we were making phone calls back home to figure out the target times and what everyone was expected to run. But I actually had the coach of Damien Warner, the Canadian decathlete, come over to me and say,
We
hey,
ended up winning.
who was the Olympic champion who broke the Olympic record, I believe, and was the 4th man ever to break 9,000 points that day. And 3 months prior to the Olympics, he had that 9,000 point barrier on the line, and he'd just missed it in the 1500. And so his coach came up to me before the 1500 in Tokyo, and he said, what's your plan for this race? Could you help Damien? And I absolutely would have if I wasn't helping Ash. So it's that sort of environment that we create in the decathlon. And that's why, pacing Ash in the 1500 was not an abnormal thing to do. I was ready to pace the Canadian athlete to Olympic gold. It's one of those things that I really love about the decathlon, that camaraderie and those friendships that I've made.
Yeah, that's what I love about sport in general. So love it.
It builds a different side of you, right? Like hopefully now we've seen the success of our 4x100 teams, right? Both men and women. So sounds like we're going to have a 4x400 for the next.
So.
That's good. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up. We know you guys have got training to get to. Super appreciate you guys coming in and having a conversation with us today. Love your insights.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This was great.
Hopefully it was
Thank
good.
you.
Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, we should do it. We should do it again. I wanna do a follow up after
Yeah,
A
6
few
months down the track.
months.
3 months. I want to see if you
I
survive
come in
the
like,
first 90 days. We should do a first 90-day one.
A before and after.
Yeah.
I come in on a stretcher.
You got to bring in some more athletes. Actually, we got to get some more. We should do a series because people need to start hearing. Like what he said is a really good point.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We've seen-
And so many athletes have really incredible stories and so much good insight. So would recommend it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's get the stories out there.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.